Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Café Muse's July reading, featuring poets Indran Amirthanayagam and Jett. Henry Crawford and I are going to be co-hosting live from the Writers Center in Bethesda, Maryland. Thank you, Writers Center. Yeah, if you're following us via live stream on Zoom and have difficulty hearing the poets, go to the bottom of the screen to the gray box with a CC, click on it, show subtitles, and the words will magically appear. Also, feel free to use the chat function to comment throughout the readings. Writing poetry is not the most lucrative career, so we encourage you to buy our featured authors' books. Not only does it support them, but it gives you the opportunity to read their poems at your leisure. The Café Muse co-hosts are volunteers who work together year-round to bring you this exceptional programming. We ask you to donate to Café Muse to support the literary programs. Throughout the chat, we'll post links to buy poets' books and to donate to Café Muse reading series. Indran and Luther's books are available at the Writers Center after the readings for the live audience. Our Zoom audience members are muted to ensure uninterrupted readings. Our live audience, we ask you to put your phones on poetry mode. It's difficult to give a brief introduction to Indran Amirthanayagam. He is a poet, a diplomat, a translator, publisher, YouTube channel host, and much, much more. He writes in English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. In 2020, he held the Book of World Records for publishing 3 books of poetry in 3 different languages. Indran is the editor of the Beltway Poetry Quarterly, hosts the Poetry Channel on YouTube, and along with Sarah Moran, edits a small press, Beltway Editions. He'll be reading from his 3 latest books, The Migrant States, 10,000 Steps, and The Splintered Face, 10,000 Tsunami Poems. To put it mildly, Indran's poems are politically charged. He writes of what is not good in our country, racism, global warming, COVID, etc. But he writes as a reminder of what is to those who know and to educate those who do not know or refuse to know. He doesn't dwell on the negative. In his optimism, he asks that we go back to humanity, to simplicity, to listening to the birds sing, spirituality, and to family. And most of all, to vote. In a family matter, he writes, "We are living in a moment of great hope, at the cusp of a new world on both sides of the water. We can only rise, bring the family back together, and pray to God to start bothering once more with the world." What touches me most is the way he shares his politics through tenderness. Also, his mother is a frequent character in his poetry, which is lovely. In voting songs, he writes, "I am going to take Mother to the polling station. This may be her last chance to vote for the right path." On that, please join me in welcoming Indran Amirthanayagam.
This is no time for criticism. I realize my lines are not lyrical. They have no surprising leaps or rhythmic epiphanies. They're flat, a body shot on the street, visited by paramedics, wailing young men and women. We do not discriminate in 2019. We are witnessing birth of a revolt, a rejection. And you may say, my verse is agitprop, an unfit exercise for poetry. I reply writing that the body must be buried with dignity and surviving family paid. As for the healing of decades-old wounds opened up again by a tank trundling into the center of the city, I offer my pen as a bulletproof vest, immune to criticism, resistant like an ear of wheat in the wind, an eagle brushing off the fur of a mouse from its wings. Who is looking down on us now, my friend? Who is saying, shut the bloody fuck up and write truly hermetic poetry? And that was before the pandemic. I mean, imagine if I had to write that poem now. And the series of poems to Whitman, there are actually about 12 of them in the book, but there were originally 20. I'll just read a couple of those. Stop by. You said stop by, spend the day and night, and I would possess the origin of all poems. Well, here I stand, and I'm willing to pay any price, give of the apple, sign a mortgage, a revolving credit line, and jump on the disaffected bomber about to set off his vest. Let's roll. Damn doors, damn jams. Raise high the roof beams. Call me Ahab. I have seen the best minds when I from black and he from white cloud free. I'm in your debt vault, and to all the poets who gave birth to you and to those you have sired in turn, thank you. The word is good and in our hands now. After midnight, Walt Whitman will come out of his mother's 9th month midnight tomorrow, the 31st of May, in the family room at the Walter Whitman home in West Hills, Huntington, Long Island, to be known henceforth in all poetry as Pomanock, the birth island of the poet who at 11 years old left formal schooling for the school of the road, learning printing and the journalistic arts, most of all learning how to observe closely the tiniest movement in a blade of grass and the rustle of a bird in the bush and the rush of wind as the bird and flock took off from the marsh and into this brief ode spoken at a turn, a crossing point before tomorrow, which will never be today, nor the day after, nor next week, nor back in time to Huntington on May 30th, 1819, when Walt, a hairy, blind baby, was just one day away from falling into light. And I'll finish this Walt suite with a poem called Walt 200, which was written on the day of his birthday anniversary. Break the locks, unleash the mind. Walt Whitman has left Pomanock. He is abroad. He is sitting among us in our soul. He flies the post with pigeons and the giant freight planes. He hops freight trains and rides into Mexico. He's on a P&O cruise visiting St. Kitts and Barbados. He has joined the Merchant Marine. He sails into Guantanamo. He throws fish into the sea in search of whales. He has the biggest, longest beard in the world. He jives, thrives, cavorts, shimmers. He's 200 years old today, and he does not give a flying rat. He's in your mind, Mr. President, even if you cannot smother or scratch or squeeze him out. He's gloriously spirit, gadfly, rabbit, and sloth. He nurses our democratic wounds. He knows how to write history from the pebble's view, the side glance of the wren, the snake hanging in the tree. He is black and white and all shades of gray. He is our friend and guide, and he will elect us every time we fall down. Let us go back to Pomanock with what we've learned these 200 years. Let us go back to set forth again Walt Whitman in our backpack. I'll have a backpack if you're ready. Let's go. The Long March, a different kind of long march, but this one for poetry. There was a long march yesterday for Haiti in South Florida. I'll read two more from this book. Cricket Match, Cope Field, because, you know, cricket is also an important part of this particular autobiography, which I suppose I write in poetry. We're coming in from the cold. I remember raised on my teammates' shoulders, how I was carried off the field. We had won, finished the season streaking victorious. We felt good. We had overcome obstacles facing our hodgepodge side, half of which had learned to play cricket at the college late in life. Coming in, beer cans were popping that evening, Marley blasting on the record player. We danced. I was the captain. I had my glasses knocked off my nose by a ball. Early that spring, I was dizzy, saw a sky full of lights, but I got up, then spent my energy over the rest of the season winning with talents under my command. I was right. The team played fine. I could put myself down the order, face slower bowling. It was all right. Proverbs smacked 4s and 6s all over the field. We danced. Underwood bowled the Yorker. We laughed and cried. Kamran, our coach, cooked Pakistani delights at his home to celebrate. Even now, a chai and a chapal kebab tastes like victory. And I'll finish reading from this book with, now finish with 10,000. A poem, an early poem I wrote for my son Anandan. Summer chess for Anandan. You go now, and I am sad, and the sadness will spill into late summer and autumn until we meet again when the leaves fall and chestnuts smack our memories alive. And you ask, Dad, did you always walk in Regent's Park when leaves turned red and yellow and the morning bristled and the sun seared yet left your skin cold? A cold sun, Dad. I feel it too. This summer that I thought would go slow has turned now into a sprinter's dash. And what's to do? Yes, write and fill days with friends and games and sums until next summer, until the next time we go to bed and know there's no morning flight and your queen and rook are ready to trap my king. Thank you. And now for Lola, my daughter, morning mass, Halloween. Hushed tones, places of worship, early morning. A woman kneeling in the pew could not get up. The priest brought her communion, then another parishioner called for an ambulance. The fireman, a friend of the ambulance driver, arrived in his fire truck. They worked together naturally. What to do now? Walk to the font, dip fingers in holy water, then go out to my car. Paramedics will lay her on a stretcher, pump her heart, wheel her away to the hospital. Life is coming to its end, a repeat. In my dad's case, his heart stopped while he kneeled at a pew. Nobody could revive it. He would have loved to see my daughter smiling as she guards the witch's cauldron this Halloween, sweets in hand. I will finish with poems from 10,000, but I'd like to read two new poems before that. One just came out in the red letters. Thank you, Stephen Ratner, Stepping Out from Columbia. And again, the autobiography. Let's go for a walk and see moonlight shining over skyscrapers, fairy castles of New Amsterdam, dreams of youth to realize in this ode to literature, music and theater, unaware of impending deaths, departures, home found then abandoned or transformed into an idea, a moving village, a portable USB imprinted in the brain, free of 10,000 literary pounds in books, kitchen goods, toaster, fridge, gas range, walking downtown from Columbia, following steps I took once to honor Federico, zombies flying saucers out of the eye of wall, to honor 10,000 movies, to honor early sweet love without fear that this urge too will pass. False, it beats, it roars. And, my mother has been ill and been writing about her. And one of the poems I wrote in Spanish is called Mi Madre en la Rosa Blanca, and has an epigraph from Maria Diaz Sanchez, who wrote me a beautiful letter. She said, Hoy vi a tu madre en la rosa. Today I saw your mother in the rose. He estado pensando toda la tarde lo que me escribiste por la mañana, sobre la rosa en tu altar y la conversación que tienes cada día con ella, en lo que te contestó y en inglés para agradecerte tu atención a ella en el poco tiempo que le toca para vivir en esta tierra y que hoy viste a mi madre en ella. Tu carta es el poema más bello que he leído. Estos versos, una humilde ofrenda. And, I will finish with some poems from 10,000 Steps. And, you know, I wrote this book in the heat of the campaign against the orange-haired tyrant. But somehow the poems have a shelf life. They 3 years later, so I'm glad for that. And also, I'm glad that that fellow is out of the office that he abused for 4 years. Voting song. And there are mothers throughout this book. My own mother, the mother of pandemics, the mother of battles, electoral battles, voting song. I'm going to take mother to the polling station. This may be her last chance to vote for the right path from the burning bush, sinking ship, roadkill, victims of the raging virus. I'm going to take mother to the polling station. And son, make sure you get that absentee ballot sent here while you visit. Every vote will count. And daughter, although you cannot vote, not this time, I want you to know that we have tried with all of our heart and mind to throw the bastards out. I've been reading Larkin lately, because I'm teaching a course starting tomorrow on Philip Larkin. And, you know, there's a sort of frank language that perhaps I like to use as well. The right path. Let us roll, America. Let us not look back. Let us seize the fellow by the absent coattail. Let us reveal the traipsing emperor nude, and let us remember and defend the rights of our virus dead. But let us do so with respect, with love. Why? Because Jesus says so. Why? Because we are not jackals and hyenas. Why? Because we have to get back on the road to the promised land. I have time for a couple more points? Yeah. The book, you know, The Mother of Elections and the Mother of Pandemics, in the section, The Mother of Pandemics, I'll read you the poems. Toppling. Give me your elbow. Take the host in your hands. But man, the Pope just spoke the sermon from his living room on videotape. This matter is turning extreme. A taxi driver got infected from his ride. Can we really shut down a city, a region, the whole world? Be prepared, we're told. We were waiting for fire, a bomb, icebergs breaking up in our soup. But this virus is more insidious, a slow shaking and swaying of the building in the mind before it falls. Late night olive oil. Let us put the letters and fears and boiling emotions on the page, Mummy. Why did you go to the kitchen stealthily without a word to your sleeping son, without your walker, to find the large bottle of olive oil, to pour it on the table and floor, to fill a small vessel which you meant to carry back to your room, as if nobody would notice until you called my name, because you could not negotiate the rest of the way from dining table to bedroom, vessel in hand, without cane or walker. I write to atone for my flailing words, saying never, 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 never again. The kitchen is prohibited. Your mania for oil in the hair is prohibited. The stealthy, mischievous, childish, truant foray into the darkness with a torch in hand, which you forgot on the countertop, all of this is prohibited. Your losing memory and control are prohibited. These words are prohibited. Decline and death are prohibited. I think I'll finish with just one poem from memory. Thank you. I mentioned earlier the poetry of migration, and the first migration I guess I made was from Tamil into other languages, and I left Tamil behind. I never picked it up again. I lost it. And then I've acquired these other languages almost to the obsession to recover or to prove to myself that I can speak outside of the what is my mother tongue, English. And so here's a poem called You Must Love. You must love the land when you leave to build your house on the sea. Love what's lost, the mango tree burning in the garden, the curious noose of the familiar coat of arms. Love the ball turning strong, spinning in a dark, faraway land. Love the tongue you'll never again speak, that wrapped you and bled you and dried up some every day on the other side of the sea. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Nothing gives me more pleasure than to introduce Café Muse team member and well-known poet Luther Jett here at the Writers Center before our Café Muse audience. And I'm happy to say that Luther Jett is one of the very first poets that I encountered when I was coming into poetry, into this community years ago. And we'd be reading in the open mics in this very room here. And that was a few years ago. Now, from those days, what struck me most about Luther's work is his deep exploration of the intricacies of the human experience, along with a strong and sobering moral and political point of view. These aspects of Luther's poetry have never been more evident than in his collection, Watchmen, What of the Night. There you will find poems like The Song of the Political Prisoners, in which he presents a powerful portrayal of resilience and defiance in the face of political oppression. Similarly, you can take a poem like Suburban Dream, Undocumented, and find a stark portrayal of poverty and despair as it arises in the poor and undocumented residents of a suburban neighborhood, not too unlike the one that we're sitting in tonight. Luther Jett's poetry has appeared in numerous journals as well as several anthologies. He's the author of 5 poetry books, Not Quite Poems, Written in Search of My Father, Our Situation, Everyone Disappears, Little Wars, and the previously mentioned Watchmen, What of the Night. In addition to this prolific body of work, Luther's newest collection, Flying to America, is scheduled for release in 2024 from Broadstone Press. So we're in for a real treat tonight, as I can attest, having read with Luther here at the Writers Center and elsewhere. So get ready to be transported into a world where emotions and thoughts intertwine in a way that challenges you to reflect, contemplate, but in the end, find solace in the power of the words of Luther Jett.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you, and thank you everyone for tuning in and walking in. I'm glad to see everyone, and I wish I could see all of you on Zoom as well. I can't, but I'm going to read a few poems from this book, and then I'm going to read some newer poems just to break things up a bit, and then we'll come back to this book. I will start with this. The Builders. Who made this house? Who sawed the timbers, laid the stone foundations? Who carved the door frames and the window sills? Who dug the well and ran the pipes? Who forged that pump handle? And who stoked the fires to smelt the ore from which the stove was cast? What mason troweled the chimney bricks, course on course to reach toward the heavens? Who kept the ledgers, for that matter, in the lumberyard? Who fed the dog that guarded it at night? Who turned the lathe to craft the chair you sit in, or the table where you nightly dine. Yes, you who live here now. You did not get here on your own, and when you sleep and dream, you do not dream alone. Thank you, with an army at our gates, even up to the final moment when the walls of the city collapse, there are people going about their usual business. A man washes out his socks in the sink. Someone runs to catch the subway. A girl in a cafe orders salad while thinking about the argument she just had with her lover. Two professional rivals meet on the street and nod politely. It looks like rain. A mother opens the back door to call her children in for lunch. An old man coughs, waiting in line for a matinee. The phone rings and it is a wrong number. All as if the day were no different from any other, as if an army of men without faces were not at our gates. A lone honeybee pollinates a red, red flower. A little girl starts singing and refuses to stop. She sings even up to the final moment. Even after that, speaking of invasions, there have been a few recently. A war story. Here is the book with torn pages. Only half remains to be deciphered. And here is the house with burnt rooms and a few fading photos scattered across the floor. And here, forgive me, these are my bones. This is the face I was using. Wrap them all tenderly. Sing of me as you sleep. Endless summer, the town where it is always summer has forgotten the famine, the wars of winter that bled into April. This town with its porch suppers, pale hydrangeas, firefly dusks, wishes to recall just what bitter herbs make the honey taste so sweet. We decorate our graves and ask no questions. Passing late, when the moon sets, we hear sobs from a darkened bedroom and think it is a lullaby. Now here's a poem that could not make the cut for this book because the events that it alludes to have not yet occurred. Fairy tales. Let's pretend the moon is made from cheese and bees go there when they die and the river runs backward on alternate weeks. And oh, the tallest peaks are covered in ice cream. You could climb them in just 10 giant steps or fly. Yeah, let's pretend that we can fly. Also, let's pretend the summer will have no end. The rifle isn't loaded. Those are not dead bodies there, floating in the city square, April 2022, Lukov, Ukraine. And Henry said, oh, these poems are also politically charged. They're so, conscious and social, and it makes everything sound dark, but I want everyone to know, I've been telling people this, all of my poems are really love poems. All of them, even that last one. And here are a few recent poems. I'm trying to break out of the mold. Canción Loquillo. Loquillo is an area in eastern Puerto Rico. Instead of sirens, glissando of bells, silvers, skies vault. The west darkens. There will be rain. If you were a bird, what would they name you? What song would you bring, laced in bright ribbons, to my door? Flamboyant trees shed their blossoms. There is not enough room in this hour to hold all the sounds of your sea. No, I'm not going to read that one. A rule of thumb, never entitle a poem with a word that you have difficulty pronouncing. I am now going to break it because this poem is entitled Mnemosyne. Mnemosyne. Whatever it's entitled, it's about memory. Your eyes, often as I've looked into them, I can't recall their color. Although I remember your favorite candy, your father's yard site, the beach you adore, your words, the skirl of your violin which soars past clouds to touch stars, your eyes remain a mystery. Even when they well with tears, their color escapes me. Sunlight that sparkles ocean water, a distant lamp seen through dark trees, radiance whose source is kept hidden. Diaspora. She gave me a box of darkness. I sang her a promise of rain. After the long march, perhaps this was not the moment either of us expected. No shadow-shrouded mountain, nothing written on the stones, only these wings which sprouted from our weary shoulders. And when we flew in different directions. I kept the box unopened. Where she landed, there were many broad rivers. Prayer. Say the mud will dry out. Say the road will clear. Say the clouds will part. Say the sea will answer the moon's wild call. Say that when there are clouds, they will only bring enough rain and not too much. Say that the cardinal perched on the dry bush is the same cardinal that perched there last year. Say the road turns but never ends. Say the land moves, but the sea goes everywhere. Say the sea will never leave us. Say when you stand on the beach at sunset, you will think of me. Say that one sees sunset is another sees dawn. Say the winter will have an end. Say the birds will return north. Say there will be flowers then. I'm returning to this book, which you can buy online. But if you're in the room, you can buy it at the table in the back. Name strand. In the nighttime, forest of frogs, sound of your breath erased, trains from this place to that, the place we are not naming. In daytime, distant smoke, figures in chalk, footsteps, sand, the color of your skin, the place we do not have names. This signpost points in two directions, may be read from two different places. My execution. When we are marched out into the yard under a forgotten sky, let me look up then. Let my knees be steady, my head unbowed, and I will gaze into the bowl of deepest blue and farther. And remember, we are still human. Listen. Shema. Hear. Listen, the silence breaks. Open the hidden door behind the door. Listen, the rusk of wheels over a gravel path, the keen of the red-shouldered hawk on her perch, the moan of deep earth shuddering open. Listen, the sky spins. Listen, we won't stay hidden forever. Listen, the whistle of the night janitor, the sigh of the young mother, the click of a key in the ignition just before the motor turns over. Listen, there is no silence. Listen, it is all silence. Listen, the storm. Listen, the wave, the waiting earth, the slow pulse of the oyamel fir in late winter, drawing her sustenance from far beneath the stones. Listen, the wings of the butterfly, the hinges of the door which hides the unseen face. Lilacs. Now I will close with the final poem in this book. The title is Conquered as in the Grape. Conquered, unconquered. There it lingers, unfinished. The story we labor to sing in whistled mornings by rude arches, mist-hovered fields of April. Our notes imperfect, let us acknowledge, even discordant, stone never polished, always rough-hewn, damp with dawn, as if camp smoke furled to sting our eyes, shroud half-visioned peak and all we glimpsed a spark, mirror flash. Oh, beautiful. What's hidden past our grasp, our muscle strife? We do not want this hymn to end. Glory to the muck. The sawdust floor, scrawled signature, torn bandage, mouth harp, and conch forever. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Luther. That was very exciting. Both of you, very exciting readings tonight. I'm Karen Alanier, and I'm the person who comes after the readers to ask at least a question. And so my question is, do you have some tips for our audience on how to write political poems that last, that are not agitprop, as Indran put it in one of his poems? So who would like to start and give us some tips on how to make poems that go the distance? You know, they go beyond just the point at which, you know, that orange hair man stood up and did all what he did. But anyway, so who would like to start? Okay, here comes Indran.
I mean, I think one should begin by reading Orwell's essay, Politics of the English Language. And then you basically get down to fresh metaphoric language. I mean, and don't repeat the socio-political, economic language, phrases, sociological language. I mean, there is a place for sociology in the world, but it's not in poetry. So poetry is a different sort of language, right? But they're both important ways to understand our lives and why we are where we are in the world. So keep studying sociology, but also read poetry and literature, novels and so on, and think about metaphors. And the bread and butter of poetry is this metaphor, yoking two images together and creating something new, making it new. And if you do that, it doesn't matter whether the subject is beans or butter or guns or love. They're all subjects of poetry. So politics is the subjects of the community, the word polis. So there's no distinction for me between political poetry and love poetry or poetry of about the environment in that sense, because they're all subjects of the community. They're all community matters. Yeah, Luther?
I'm going to contradict Indran just a little bit, because I am large and he is large and we are full of multitudes. Don't just read. Don't just sit in a room and read. Look, watch, look for the images. It's the images we remember. If you think of some of the famous photographs and images of famous events, what does that look like? Forget what was happening around what was going on. That image of the young woman who's probably my age by now at the Pentagon in the late 60s, putting flowers in the muzzle of a National Guardsman's rifle. That flower is what makes your poem stop being didactic. You know, it's, you know, you can march in the streets and you can shout slogans all you want. There are birds flying overhead nevertheless. You can walk through a battlefield. You can walk through a battlefield and both the sorted images and the flowers that are still blooming on the edge of that battlefield, they're all part of that experience. So I would say live and watch and listen and don't get hung up on the slogans, but on what's being really experienced by folks. For the benefit of those of you on Zoom, gentlemen in the audience have said, list the things that are there. Just list them out. It's like a prayer. List everything that's there. And don't worry about the slogan. I'm kind of interpolating.
What an evening. Thank you all for coming out. It's that time. We've come to the end of our July program. On behalf of Café Muse, I want to thank our poets, Indran and Amirthanayagam and Luther Jett. Giving them another round of applause. I'd like to thank them for their superlative readings, and it's been a pleasure for all of us here in the Café Muse community. We encourage you, again, to go to the links. My team member, Majda, has been dropping links throughout the whole session. Make use of that to purchase the books of these two outstanding poets. Now, you can join us again, and we ask you to come back on August 7th, 2023 for our Zoom presentation of our annual translation series, which is going to be hosted by Barbara Goldberg. This is something we do every year, and it's quite a nice program, especially if you're interested in poetic translation. I want to thank everyone who made this evening possible. My co-host, Renee Garrity, who helped us. And all of the other co-hosts that work behind the scenes here, and I'm going to name them all: Ellen Cole and Henry Crawford, that's me. Majda Gama, Renee Garrity again, Luther Jett is one of our team members, and Claire McGough. And of course, our WordWorks founder, Karen Alanier. On behalf of Café Muse, we thank you all for joining us. And without you, we wouldn't be here. Be well, be safe, and good night.